And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, we have hockey in just a couple of days now, finally, after spending the last couple of months doing nothing, worrying about Oliver Ekman-Larsson coming to the Bruins and doing trade scenarios and all that fun stuff. We've finally at last reached regular season hockey. So I'm doing splendid. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm right there with you. Just the fact that there is Bruins hockey this week. Real games, not preseason games, not just training camp, which we were very happy was here and we love so very much for all the content it brings. Is real hockey this week. There's games. And I see this episode, this might be the episode I've been most excited for since the trade deadline one of 2020. So we did a trade deadline show back when things were normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being really amped up for that. Like, the Bruins are going to make some big splashes. Maybe Tyler Toffoli, and then Tyler Toffoli got traded that night before it even released to the Canucks. But even with that, coming back into the postseason when they came back to return to play, I was excited for that and I was pumped. But this is different because this is a season. This is a full slate of games, not 82. And I'm sure when there's a regular 82-game season with fans and COVID is a thing of the past, I'll say this is the most excited episode I've been for an episode since 2019. But this really is. I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for what this season will bring, for what happens this season, all the twists and turns, and I couldn't be more excited. So this episode is season preview and predictions. And we've both been at training camp for the past week, and it's been great. It's been so much fun to just be back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's getting back into the swing of things now. It's obviously a little bit different when you got, a mask and you do contact tracing and all that stuff, but you roll with the punches, right? I mean, it's just good to get back and see kind of how the Bruins seem to be, what their thinking is in terms of crafting this roster, because I feel like we went into camp with all these different question marks of who's going to fill in where, and more or less they've kind of just roll with the same guys, right? Like it hasn't really been, all right, one day you got a different guy skating with Bergeron and Marchand or anything like that. It's kind of, they've like set into these roles where it's like, all right, Sunika's going to be with Bergeron. Like Zboril's going to skate quite a bit with Kevin Miller. Kevin Miller is going to be healthy and he's going to be the third pairing guy. Like it, I think it's probably a byproduct of the fact that the training camp schedule, isn't long at all. So they have to kind of dial in and get these spots figured out in a hurry. But it's just good to see, be back in the building watching hockey again and seeing how they're kind of on the fly, kind of sprinting to the starting line for the season. Because it's going to be, they have to have multiple guys kind of gelling right away.
You mentioned it. I feel like in some ways, leading up to camp, we were all like, they have no time to figure this out. They got to figure it out fast. I feel like they just threw guys together and said, you're going to figure out how to play together. We don't care if you suck or you're great. You are going to be together. And I feel like the first day, Nick Ritchie was out there with Coyle and Smith. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe that's just because Bjork's in the other group.
Right.
And then I was like, well, they didn't just auto-assign these groups. Cassidy obviously put these together. Right? It wasn't just like, it's like we do in street hockey or pond hockey. You throw sticks in the middle and you throw them to one side or the other. Mm-hmm. So they've pretty much stuck with the same guys throughout and kind of let guys develop chemistry, which is something that Cassidy always hasn't been great at in the past, letting guys develop chemistry. And it feels like he's doing that now. So let's get into predictions. So we each have brought 3 predictions to the table. I don't know what yours are. I don't think you know what mine are. And so this will be a fun surprise for both of us on the predictions we have that are sure to be very right come, the end of the season. That no one's going to pull the audio.
By like the end of like next week, they're going to be wrong is probably how these usually go.
Yes, this is how they usually go. So I'll start off with a kind of a lukewarm prediction. I wouldn't say this is one that is far-fetched. Or as out on a limb as maybe people might want. So I guess I'm gonna start very cold and get hot.
Okay.
So you can anticipate. You can look forward to my later predictions.
Cool.
Jack Studnicka forces himself to stay in the lineup even after Pastrnak comes back. Now I don't mean stays in the first line right wing. That would be very hot, a very hot take. But I do think he pushes and makes it very difficult to keep the third line together as is and not slot Studnicka in there somewhere.
No, I think especially the spot they're giving him right now, as you said, I don't think he's going to be in that spot for the whole season. But as much as it's kind of weird to project hey, it's your first full season in the NHL. We're going to start you on the top line as being a low pressure spot. It's not, of course, but when you're put in that spot where you got Bergeron and most likely Marchand there with you, it's like a great way for a young player to kind of build some momentum. Considering the way that Stanika plays, the grade A chances are going to be there if he's in that area of the ice, right? So I think for the Bruins, you want to see what that guy can do in that spot, and he's in a good spot to succeed if he just kind of plays the same game he was playing up in Toronto during the bubble playoffs. So no, I mean, I definitely think that, it's a good problem to have too for the Bruins, right? If Stanika's doing well, Pasternak's ready to come back, we talk about all the time, does Pasta get broken up from that line? Probably not, because we talk about it every single time, right? And it never happens. But
Never happens.
but if you have Pasternak back up there, and all of a sudden Stanika's in a role where you can put him on the third line, or if maybe a guy like Kasha's not up to par, if you put him there, like there's a bunch of different spots you can put Jack Stanika, and I wouldn't be surprised if his role expands just beyond. I think everyone, there's probably like the unfair expectations where you expect this guy to be like a Calder Trophy candidate, right? Like I don't think he should do that, but I think the way the Bruins are building him into the lineup, where I think they're going to be relying on him. Even you look at the PK, right? Like there's still a couple of question marks with that PK unit. And I mean, Stanika had, I think, 7 shorthanded goals last year in the AHL. So not like he's going to be doing that up in the NHL level, but I think they view him as a guy who can hold his own in that role, and they're going to need him to. So I wouldn't be surprised if he really carves out a definitive role with this team, even when Pasta gets back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, as you said, I don't expect him to be a Calder Trophy candidate. Maybe I'll put my Bruins goggles and, Jack Stanika is going to be a Calder candidate. But I do think he's going to be effective. I do. And as you said, I think being on that top line to start with Marchand and Bergeron helps out a bunch. So we'll go back and forth. What's a prediction that you have?
So I don't know if mine's, too much of a spicy take or too much of a bold prediction, but I think at the deadline, they're still going to swing a trade for a top 4D. I think
that was one of mine.
Damn it. Do you want me? You want to take that one? I'll cook up another one.
No, continue. I'll cook up.
So yeah, I mean, I just think that you look at this team, and as much as people I think are especially very doom and gloom after the Chara news, I think people equated him leaving to like the window being closed. Like I still think this is a very good team. You've still got a good veteran core. You've still got quite a few guys who are capable of breaking out on this team and pushing this team further. But I think even if a guy like Zaboral or a guy like Lozon hold their own, I still think if you're the Bruins, you still need to get that one more piece to put yourself over the top, just to have a veteran guy who can, log you 18 to 20 plus minutes a night and just being a dependable guy back there. Again, if Zaboral or Lozon or even Vakanainen, soar over expectations, and it's one less problem to have. But I think if you're the Bruins, I wouldn't be surprised if they look at, a guy who's maybe a pending UFA or anything like that. Like I still don't think you're going to have Noah Hannafin or one of these guys with term come here just because of the Seattle expansion draft. But you look at the Bruins and what their weaknesses are, the fact that they've got a good amount of, not good amount, but flexible amount of cap space that they can take on a contract. It seems like inevitable right at this point that they're going to swing a trade for a top 4D. Who's it going to be? I think that kind of remains to be seen, but you just, project this season and this the weaknesses of the roster. It just makes too much sense that they're not going to swing a trade for a guy.
It'll be Victor Hedman.
Of course,
no, it's funny though. You mentioned that, and before when we were doing some show prep, I was looking into guys who are going to be UFAs after this year, who are left-to-shot defensemen on bad teams. I came up with 3 names. Now, these names have not been rumored. These are just names that I would not be surprised to see the Bruins in on come March, April, that time frame. Ryan Murray, left-shot defenseman with the Devils. Again, none of these guys are special. None of these guys are coming in and, headlining your team. They're not getting, billboards outside TD Garden.
No.
But they are somewhat reliable. Yes. Ryan Murray, Alex Goligoski, a left-shot defenseman from Arizona, and Nicholas Hjalmarsson, another left-shot defenseman from Arizona, because I think Arizona probably is not a team that we expect to do a ton of damage. Same with the Devils. And at least, the good thing about Murray is he's in the division.
Yes.
So it's, you're
less quarantine issue, right?
Yes, so you don't have to, I guess, worry so much about that. Maybe there's less regulations. So those are options. I think those are options. They're not bad. Again, by the way, has Jacob Zaboral's stock ever been higher than after he gets paired with Kevin Miller? And I guess when he got drafted, his stock was pretty high. But
Yeah, exactly.
but I mean, he's out there in the third pairing with Kevin Miller, probably going to start the season, in the lineup, which is not something that we maybe anticipated. So all could go well on that front, but there's a good chance it doesn't. And there's also a good chance, you can never have too many defensemen, injuries, COVID. I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah, that little thing, COVID.
That
right?
Yeah, remember COVID? I feel like we're
Yeah.
forgetting that, like, right now the NBA is like potentially thinking of like shutting down the season for the time being.
Yes.
And there's like, issues they're facing. And there are lots of what is it? The Canucks, the Stars,
Blue Jackets had to have, I think, 17 guys out. The Kings have had multiple guys out. So, yeah, the Stars is the most severe one, right? They're not literally going to start the season on time, but it's the reality of the situation you're in right now in COVID with cases, skyrocketing. It's one thing where I think if like one case was reported back in July when teams were coming back for training camp, I think everyone would be freaking out, right? But that was back in like the summer lull. We can view it as the lull now compared to what.
Yeah, back then we were like, whoa, and now we're looking like, damn, those are the days.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's going to be, I think, trial by fire, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty more complications along the way. It's just how you best minimize how much it affects your team.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what it is. But so yes, those are three names I think that the Bruins could be in on come March and April. Again, that's just completely looking at contract status and teams. So I don't want to see a tweet at E. Marinofsky is reporting that the Bruins are in on like Alex Golub. I'll lose my mind if you do that, which means people are now going to do that because
You're going to get a tweet from at Conor Ryan with 2 N's. Conor Ryan at 3.
Yes, they will say that. The Spoke Z will tweet it. I already know. Anyways, let's get to my next prediction. This is the one. I did not have this initially, but it was a close fourth, so now I'm making it my second. And Cassidy mentioned this the other day, and it kind of got me thinking, and it'd be a fun little prediction. Someone will come off the taxi squad and stick in the lineup. Never know. You never know. And my guess is it's not in the top 6. I don't think Paul Carey's coming in or Zach Senyshyn, and they're going to, do crazy damage on the second line. But there's a weird chance that someone misses time on the fourth line. They plug Paul Carey in, and he sticks. Yep. That's crazy, but there's a chance. There's always that chance that happens. Now, again, we'll learn, I believe, Tuesday who the taxi squad is, or we should at least learn kind of who it is. And obviously, we're recording this Monday night, so we do not know the taxi squad yet. We can assume certain players are on it, certain players are not on it. But I do think that maybe someone comes off the taxi squad and carves out a role with the team. I don't think that's too far-fetched.
No, not at all. I think especially where, if you want to speculate that as long as he doesn't get picked off waivers, like a guy like Senyshyn, who it's kind of an unfortunate situation for him. He gets put on waivers on Monday, and I think everyone's just kind of burying him of like, oh, good pick, everyone. Like, there's that. But also, like, guy looked pretty good up in that third line role last year in November when he was up here. Then he got hurt. And then he comes back this year, and he's got Richie and Kasha and Sadnika and all these other wingers in front of him. It's like, was he going to like leapfrog those guys? I mean, like if he went, bonkers during this training camp, maybe, but like the reality was he wasn't going to do that, right? So it's kind of an unfortunate situation.
He didn't see any of the hate on Monday. He was at the dentist getting his teeth picked.
Yeah, that was like injury to insult, right? Like he get put on waivers, and also he gets his teeth knocked out during Monday's scrimmage. So tough couple of hours for Senyshyn, but as long as he doesn't get picked off waivers, which you could see a team maybe do if you look at a low cost, low risk, potentially all right reward in terms of a guy who could be a third line guy, especially on a team that doesn't have forward depth. But no, whether it be him or a guy like Bleed who plays a straight line role that could roll in on the fourth line, like there's definitely a spot for a few of these guys that if they're needed, and they probably will be in a season like this, they're going to be crucial to the Bruins' success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've never been big on Bleed, but I think a guy like Senyshyn, it's funny, Senyshyn back at the time when he was drafted was thought of as kind of a reach because the Bruins had 3 straight picks. Yes. They wanted to kind of take someone that was a little off the board. maybe not the right year to do that, but we've done that. So we have
Have we?
sung
Yeah.
that tune so many times. So I will refrain from doing that on a bright day like today of starting a new season. What is your next prediction?
My next one is that even with him out for could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, I still think Pastrnak leads the Bruins in goals. And again, that's one I think probably people won't think is that shocking, considering that how much of a lion's share of power play time and how much time that top line gets. But I think especially look at the season, right? Is Marchand, who's hopefully able to start the year on time. Is he a candidate? You've got Craig Smith, who people think is going to do a strong job this year, especially with Coyle. DeBrusk is due for a breakout year. Is Kasha, after the amount of shot attempts he gets, is he a guy who could break through? Like, those are all viable candidates, and it wouldn't surprise me if a guy like DeBrusk or Kasha breaks out. But I still think when you look at, even with the time off and the procedure itself, I mean, hip surgery, it's not something you just brush off right and you're good to go. Like, there's going to be a buildup. I think when you look at just the reps he gets, and especially just the way he seems to improve his game every year, like, we've gone from Pasta being a guy who is getting all of his goals in tight to now being a guy who's almost automatic from that left circle, which very few guys can do. So I still think Pasta is still the guy. He's not going to break the 50-goal mark again. That'd be pretty wild if he did this year of all
Yes,
years.
he is. Yes, he is. This is the year.
This is the year you're going to call it. So, but I still think when you look at just the reps he gets, that he's still going to be the guy leading the charge.
Imagine the people last year did prediction shows were like, Pasternak's going to hit 50 goals, and he just, COVID and giving up the goal to Marchand.
The outright Rocket Richard winner because of that. So he's being a good teammate.
Yes. Shake my head. Anyways, I like your prediction. Pastrnak leads the Bruins in goals. I think that's one that is, with the time off, I think that's maybe not such a super popular prediction. Mine is actually kind of the opposite. I think Jake DeBrusk leads the Bruins in goals. This was something I said. It came to me. I was watching TV one day, and this came to me, and I was like, this is the year. This is the year. Pasternak's out to start the season. It's a shortened season. DeBrusk had that inconsistent year last year that he's been talking about this since when his end of season, his exit interview back in September. This has been a thing that's been talked about quite a bit. He had the new contract. It's kind of a prove me deal.
Yep.
He's got the consistent presence next to Krejci on the right with Kasha, and that seems to probably look like it's probably going to work. So the cards are stacking up for Jake DeBrusk to lead the Bruins in goals. Now, again, I saved that for third because I think that's my hottest take, my hottest prediction. But that wouldn't surprise me. And again, like, I think that he has that potential. He's he can absolutely be a goal scorer. He's shown he has no problem scoring goals in the past. And you have your leading goal, your best goal scorer out to start the season, and you have for the first time in your career, to start a season, you have a set second line. The second line is set. You don't have Backes over there. You don't have Kuhlman. You don't have Brett Ritchie. You don't have Rick Nash for 20 minutes. Like, you have Andre Kasha. And I do think that this is the year that Jake DeBrusk leads the Bruins in goals. And it's funny, you think like, oh, what is he going to score, 40? And it's like, well, no, it's shortened season.
It's like 18 goals or something like that.
Yes,
which someone's going to be leading the league with like 26 or something like that. And it's going to be like you're going to look back on it and just be like,
Like, it's funny that the NHL, I think it was the NHL, posted an Instagram post, and it was like, will Cale Makar, score like over 50 points or something? And people were like, what? It's a shortened season. Like,
yeah,
probably not.
Something.
But for a second, my UMass ass was like, "Oh my god, he's getting 100." But then I was like, "Actually, never mind. It's a shortened season."
Right? No. I agree with. I think DeBrusk can be right up there too. I mean, it's one thing too where it's not like DeBrusk's style of play is not conducive to being around those areas where he should be, potting these goals, right? I mean, he's at his best when he's in front, getting rebounds or tipping home shots. And I think with Krejci and Kasha, and Cassidy mentioned that he pretty much just wants to stick with that group, which is encouraging to hear in terms of just how many times have we heard David Krejci and the carousel of wingers he's had to deal with, right? To finally have kind of a set grouping there, I think should benefit all those guys. And I think especially for DeBrusk, if he's playing his game, he's mentioned that he's put on some muscle, that he wants to work on, his board work and stuff like that. And those are kind of the smaller details that can be the difference between a grade A chance at an actual goal, right? So again, this is a guy who almost got 30 goals 2 years ago. So he knows how to score the goals. It's just putting yourself in those spots more at a more consistent rate. Because I think they'd rather him, score every couple of games than, have 3 in 4 games and then all of a sudden he doesn't have a goal in 14 games, right? It's just kind of evening out that production a little bit for him.
So that is that. Those are my 3. You still have one left,
I
correct? A
have one
prediction?
left, yeah. And I'm going with Charlie McAvoy getting legitimate Norris Trophy consideration, which I think, uh, again, it's a tough kind of gig to be in because there's a lot of very, very talented defensemen, not only established veteran guys who've been out there, but you look at Heiskanen and you look at Quinn Hughes and your guy from UMass Lowell or whatever school it was. He's pretty good. It's a stacked field, but I think you look at McAvoy in his game and the responsibilities he's going to deal with this year. I mean, he's probably going to be averaging 24, 25 minutes a night at this point, right? You look at I would imagine Grizzly has the first dibs on that first power play unit, but I'm sure McAvoy is going to get more looks there as well. I think, Lozon's probably the guy to start the year, but I think regardless of who it's going to be, I think McAvoy is going to have a lot more freedom to, jump up into the play, to be a little more creative with the puck. And I think that's going to do wonders for him because, again, we talk about all the time of how terrible he was last year because he didn't score a goal, even though if you took more than 2 minutes to look at all the rest of his numbers and how good he was, you realize, shouldn't really give a shit about how many goals he scores if he's that good.
No, he sucks. He didn't score a goal until February. The guy blows.
Exactly. So, but regardless, if people who, take the time to, gauge guys beyond goals, I'm sure he'll get more goals out of the gate anyway because he's going to be able to be more confident with the puck because, I think you saw him down the stretch in the regular season and during the bubble, just how much of groove he was in. So I think with the added responsibilities, again, he's not going to be a guy who, if this was a full 82-game season, he's going to be like a 60-point guy as a defenseman. But I think what he does defensively in transition at 5-on-5 especially, even if he's a guy who in an 82-game pace was like 35, 40 points, I think his value's evident. I think a lot more people are picking up on that when you look at just how much he impacts a game.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. I think McAvoy's absolutely going to get Norris attention. And, from a points perspective, I expect him 25 to 30 in that realm, especially on that first pairing, especially with, a little Lozon who's more mobile. I think that's a position with Lozon where you could easily see change. You could easily see John Moore go up there. You could see Grizzlick go up there.
Vaakanainen. Yeah.
Maybe Zaboral makes that big push, and he's up there. So I think there's a lot of chances. By the way, one guy we didn't mention who could be on the taxi squad or whoever is Trent Frederick, who could make a real push for that fourth line spot because I think that would be very good, and I think that that would be very interesting. Bruins fans would love it. Bruins fans absolutely love Trent Frederick, as they should. He's a fun guy, and there's a little bit of tenacity there, so to speak. So we've done our 3 predictions. That is our 3. If you guys have if you guys want to debate him, if you guys want to come at us for him or agree with us, dare I say, let us know. Definitely let us know. Now we get into the 7th player award, the breakout candidate, MVP, and where the Bruins finish. So we'll start low again. We'll start with breakout candidate. And I will let you go first because I got the first prediction. I'll let you go first. Who is your breakout candidate this year?
Yeah, I think it's, there's, again, as I said before, there's so many different guys who are capable of breaking out. I don't even know if it's worthy of a breakout because he's been in the NHL for a couple of years, but I think Grizzlick's a guy who is just set up to get so many more responsibilities on his plate and probably run with it. I mean, you look at just how good he was the last couple of years on the third pairing. For a guy who's, everyone compares him to other smaller puck-moving guys like a Krug, but you look at his defensive metrics and how good he is, and it's not like he's this shutdown guy, but I think it's just the way he moves the puck, the way he hits those, first passes. He's so adept at getting out of danger and getting out of those taxing D-zone shifts. I think is why his numbers are so great. I think he should fare well in that role with a guy like Kahlo, or if he gets pushed up to McAvoy's pairing. I think he just makes every other guy he's with better. And whether it's the added minutes and the fact that his defensive metrics should still, hold firm based on kind of the way he plays, coupled with the fact that he's probably your go-to power play guy and probably is in line for a lot more points. I think he's just set up to have a breakout year. And for the Bruins, I'm sure they're going to be thrilled about that, considering they signed him to a nice 4-year contract. So I think he's my favorite for that role.
That's a great candidate. That would definitely be a pick of mine. Another pick would be Jack Studnicka for me. I think that's an easy one. But I do want to go a little different on this. I want to expand your mind. The point of this podcast is not to just run with the mainstream. It's do things a little differently. So my breakout, Greg Zanin. Yes. No, it's Lee Stempniak this year.
Okay.
But no, it's funny. Because I had Studnicka written down, but for the sake of having a different answer from earlier, because Studnicka was a prediction, I'm going to say a breakout candidate is Charlie Coyle. And people are kind of like, why? He's established in the NHL. He's signed to a long-term deal. Well, here's what I mean by it. He's always, been that puck possession guy, very reliable, fun to watch. But the points have not always been there. There are lots of times where Coyle is not scoring those points. People are kind of wondering if he's the 2C in waiting, if he's the next, David Krejci, so to speak, behind, Bergeron on the second line. And I think this is the year where he has to show that, yeah, I can absolutely, step in and, kind of replace Krejci if Krejci is to leave, production-wise. You'd think this is the year that he's most set up to do it. He has Craig Smith on his right, who we both have, I think everyone has very high hopes for, and I think he will hit those hopes. And on the left side, he starts with Nick Ritchie, but there's other options there. You can go with Bjork, maybe Studnicka at some point. So it seems like to me the breakout guy is Coyle. I think Coyle is really going to kind of come through with points. Obviously he's a third-line center, so it's not like he's out there all the time. He's not going to have as much time on ice as, Bergeron and Marchand and DeBrusk, but I think relative to the, past seasons on a points per game level, not like he might have less points than last year's because there's less games. But
right.
I do think that Coyle is set for sort of that breakout year to prove that he can be that next second line center.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think especially it's kind of that domino effect, but especially if Pasta's back and that first line is as expected and the second line with DeBrusk and Kasha, if they work out well, and you're just leaving these more favorable matchups for the Coyle line. Like you saw just how much of a force they were in the run to the Cup in 2019, where they had those favorable matchups and they were dominating. And it remains to be seen how Richie does. I think Richie's been pretty solid during camp, as much as I think that pains Bruins Twitter when we both tweet about the lines and stuff like that. But I think Craig Smith's going to do wonders, both in terms of scoring goals, but opening up a bunch of ice for a guy like Ritchie or Coyle, who everyone knows he loves to hold on to the puck. So I think you look at kind of the matchups that they're able to get. I expect those guys to, pile on the points, but be a legitimate, top 5 third line, when you look at just kind of the numbers on how they should fare in those roles.
Nick Ritchie, 20 goals? Question mark.
That would be a bold. If we won that, if you led the podcast title with Nick Ritchie for Rocket Richard, I think we would never be able to do another podcast again.
We get canceled.
Yeah.
What's funny though is I don't know how I feel about Nick Ritchie, because obviously we saw camp and he looked good with them, but again, it wasn't really against competition. So that's when I feel like I feel like I have to err on the side of caution there, in the sense that I don't necessarily believe he's going to be the entire season, but who knows? I mean, maybe, that line works. So, whatever.
He's going to score the first goal of the season too.
Yeah.
I'm going to put, it's going to be not even a greasy goal. It's going to be just a going in wrist shot. It's going to just, and everyone's going to be people are going to be pissed about it. First game back, we have a season final. People are going to be mad on the first 5 minutes of the game because Nick Ritchie scored.
An absolute snipe too, just an absolute missile.
Top corner.
Hags is going to be doing dances in his living room.
It's like when poor Blackwood got what was it? Grizzly sniped that one against the last time we were there. It's gonna be one of those games.
Dangled Subban on that.
Yeah,
dangled Subban. But at any rate, those are our breakout players. 7th player award. I would not be surprised to see that we have the same guy. Mine is Craig Smith.
Mine was also Craig Smith, but you can talk about Craig Smith. I'll go with Grizzly, because I think you need to have Craig Smith. Makes a lot of sense, right? Where I think he's gonna be that third line guy who's gonna produce, and I think be a guy who lives up to expectations. But Grizzly's also from Massachusetts, and he's gonna have a probably good year, which usually qualifies you, right? We look at the last two guys who've won is Chris Wagner and Charlie Coyle. We got to complete the holy trinity, man, of guys from the Commonwealth. We have to have Matt Grizzly in there.
That's true. That's true. Maybe Macrozik, but that's also a very viable one. I'll also go Todd Angeli. Todd
Oh,
Angeli, getting him in there.
exactly. That's true.
Has to be in there. Todd Angeli's
And
got
if
to be
not
in
this
there.
year, he's due for breakout next year, right? Like
Yes,
there's
next
always
year's his
next
year
year
with the
too.
fans back,
Of
and
course.
everyone. Maybe they sing along with him. Then it's
Yep.
just like game over. And if he
Beautiful.
sings those Christmas carols,
Oh,
if he
that'd
sings
be
those
great.
Christmas,
There,
oh
there'd be
boy,
tears.
there'd be tears in people's eyes. Jingle bells. But seventh player, for, obviously, as I said, Craig Smith. I think this is the most predictable one. Just given what he can bring on that third line, because obviously to be a seventh player, people kind of, it's not normally a starter given it's seventh player. It's not David Pastrnak or Brad Marchand, but as we both have noted in camp, I mean, Smith has a missile. And just, you look at the kind of game he plays, it fits in, especially with a guy like Coyle, it fits in with the Bruins. This is someone that I think everyone has high expectations for. And I do expect him to be getting the seventh player. That's the one on here that I would actually, I would put real
Pencil
money
in.
on.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's gonna be Greg McKegg now that you say that though, because like before, like they've at least have gotten the seventh player award right the last couple of years. Like you could make the case that maybe last year like Carlo could have deserved it as well, but like for the last couple of years before that, it was always just like the best player. It was like Marchand had it a few times, Pasta won it. Like usually, like the last couple of years, it's been kind of skewered, but it seems like guys are at least reading the room a little bit better.
Like
Or
Mitch Trubisky with the Nickelodeon
oh,
valuable player.
exactly. It was. We have to do that other segment of who wins the MVP on this
PK
team.
Subban.
Oh, of course, yeah. For the Bruins, though, Greg McKegg. Greg McKegg
Yes.
kind of sounds like a Nickelodeon character. So
Yeah, no, it does. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that would, like Connor Clifton would win like MVP.
yes, MVP.
MVP. But so you said Grizzly, and I agree with that. I think that's very legit. Okay. So we have seventh player, we have breakout. Give me your team MVP. Because I think mine's a little off the board, but you go with yours.
I mean, mine's not. Yours will be off the board. Mine, I'm gonna go the obvious pick and say Tuukka Rask because I think just especially this year with the defense where you don't really know exactly what you have in them. I think Rask's gonna be relied on more than ever. And you could even do like 1A, 1B because with how compressed this schedule is gonna be, you need both him and Halak to kind of be on their game and that's why I think they're going to fare well in this East division because I think the Bruins probably still have the best tandem in net. Like there's a lot of guys like Carter Hart is a very good goalie, but is he going to be playing every single game? Like, it's, you have to factor in some of those things. Is Jari going to play every single game? Like how does Samsonov do with Washington? Like the Bruins at least have a good backup option there with Halak. But especially, people, again, even though we talk about it every single time about Rask leaving the bubble, people still have it clouded that.
What?
Yeah, exactly. But
he's coming back?
People always kind of forget that, he finished second in the Vezina last year as well. So he's still a very, very good goalie. And I think he's going to be, not breaking any new ground here where I think he's still going to be a key guy that's going to be the biggest determiner of how far the Bruins go is how Tuukka Rask does. So hopefully it's a clean slate for him. And I'm sure he'll still hear it from, fans on Twitter or wherever virtual means there are. But I still think as Tuukka Rask goes, so goes the Boston Bruins.
Yes, I think that's a very valuable pick, a very legitimate one, and I think it absolutely could take place. My team MVP, though, is David Krejci. And a lot of people might go, what? And the truth is, obviously, the obvious picks on up front and kind of with the team are Bergeron and Marchand, and on the back end it'll be McAvoy. That was kind of my secondary pick, was McAvoy kind of leading the D. But a guy like Krejci, I mean, you really think about it the past couple of years, and the Bruins have obviously been a very good defensive team and just a one-line offensive team. If they got the secondary scoring, it was yippee, and it was pretty much an automatic win. But when you have just the offense coming from that top line, and if you just shut them down, everything else shut down with it, just because Krejci, as we've said a million times, didn't have a right wing. Now he's got that right wing. He's got a motivated DeBrusk on his left. Krejci looked really good in the bubble back in Toronto. Remember, playoff Kretsch was the biggest thing going in the world, actually, at that time. To me, I think he's the MVP. Getting that extra scoring, getting consistent scoring out of that line is going to be huge. When Pastrnak is out, in the case that Stanika does not bring Pasternak's level of production or flops completely, which I don't think will happen, but in the case he does, you have stability with that second line. So to me, I think David Krejci is going to end up being the team MVP of the Bruins this year, which and also it's a contract year. Technically speaking, I mean, some people think he might go back to the Czech. He says he's not retiring, so that's out of it. But he's going to want to maximize his earnings. And with the Bruins' luck, he'll end up scoring 100 goals this year and is deserving. Is going to ask for this huge deal.
If that's the case, then they're fucked. They're not signing him again. If he goes 100 goals, then unfortunately.
Yes. I don't think any team's signing him.
It'd be good because I think the Bruins would probably win the cup if your second line center is scoring 100 goals in 56 games. But bad news
Some Wayne Gretzky shit.
Yeah, but bad news for David Krejci's future in the Bruins. I don't think even with some cap getting off the books next year that they've got the means to sign a 100-goal scorer.
100-goal scorer. But truthfully, Bruins lucky would be like Krejci puts up 30 goals this year. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, now he wants a 4-year, like $7-8 million a year deal. And they're just like, oh, Don Sweeney's like, what the fuck?
That's like Ovechkin asking for like his new contract. I think like the rumored thing was he wanted like $13 million a year. And it's like, he's like 35. I'm like, that's gonna.
Who's gonna tell him?
That's gonna end badly. So,
but yes, I think Krejci is a viable candidate for MVP. And as you saw with my picks, I didn't want to go with like Bergeron's gonna win MVP because it's too obvious. No one wants to listen to that. They want to listen to outside the box type things. But I do think Krejci could win it. I'm not just saying that. I legitimately believe Krejci will end up being team MVP. So, now finally, we are going to predict where the Bruins finish in the East. I think both of our final predictions is the Bruins lose to the Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup in 7 games.
No, they're winning it, man. Let's switch it up. No, they're beating Toronto. They're beating Jumbo in the Stanley Cup.
That would be that to me would be the greatest thing in the world. And that's something we've talked about at length. I think that would be the best thing. By the way, I think if the Bruins did play the Maple Leafs in the Cup, they would win. I do. Mm-hmm. Toronto is still Toronto. I just think one of these years Toronto has to win, and somehow by hook or crook it would be in the Stanley Cup final, of course. But my prediction is I think the Bruins finish second in the East, which, by the way, you should want. Bruins fans, you should not want this team to consistently be the top point getter anywhere. You don't want that. It's been a terrible, terrible, terrible omen over this team for the past decade. Finish second to the Flyers, have a good season. That is what I expect out of them. I expect Washington to be pretty good. I expect the Rangers to not yet compete for the Cup, but still be like a hard team to play against. I expect the Islanders to be kind of in that mix. So yeah, I expect them to finish. I expect the Bruins to finish second, which is very good.
Yeah, and I was going to have them finishing second as well. I think they're in that tier right above maybe a team like Washington and Pittsburgh, but I think the Flyers are right there with them. I mean, they've got an established veteran core, but they also have 4 or 5 younger guys that should keep on getting better between Hart, as they call him outside of the common. Carter Hart. Now I sound like I have a brogue. But either him or Provorov or Konechny or all these guys. They've got a whole bunch of guys.
Nolan Patrick's coming back too.
Nolan Patrick, it was pretty much a lost year. So they've got a ton of guys who should take, big steps, and barring a major drop off from the Giroux or some of these other guys, which I don't expect to have happen, there's still going to be a balanced team. They coached well. So I think it's going to be 1-2 with them and the Flyers for most of the year, which should be good. They'll be facing off in Lake Tahoe. That was finally made official on Monday. Should be fun to watch. So I think, that's going to be the primetime matchup, I think. And we're stuck in the same division as Gritty now, which will be interesting. So I think he had his own little podium. I don't know if you saw their scrimmage that they had, but he had his own little deck to himself and just danced the entire time, which seemed very physically draining. The man was dancing for the entire man or woman. We don't know. We don't know about Gritty.
Who knows?
Yeah,
no, Gritty's just Gritty. Gritty's his own gender. It's
who are we to say, right? But Gritty was just having the time of Gritty's life. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty more chirps and other things more shenanigans Gritty's going to be up to whenever the Bruins show up there. I'm sure there'll be many Brad Marchand chirps with him, messing up the shootout, all that stuff. But you know what? Let's run with it, right? If Gritty's in the division, it's a good thing for all of us, right?
Gritty gives opposing teams COVID.
Yeah, I mean that's like literally what. Yeah, that would be like the. Hopefully they don't go that far with Gritty. You have to put
Gritty's on the bench with the water bottles, just kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, exactly.
right over
Yeah,
the top with
yeah.
like a towel full of COVID.
Gritty can only go so far, right? But we'll see. I'm sure he's gonna be up to his usual shenanigans this year.
And what's funny is he has free because it's Gritty. It can be anything. Gritty has free reign in the stands, so Gritty can walk to behind the net. He can put up the Marchand missing the shootout. I mean, imagine the Bruins and Flyers go to a shootout in Philly, and Gritty's behind the Flyers net with the picture of Marchand missing the puck. I mean, can you imagine like the picture of that going on Twitter? Like that has to happen. And again, we're gonna hear about that a million times, but that picture placement would be brilliant.
It'd be awesome.
It would be awesome. I hope Gritty's listening and hears that. Gritty's been working out all offseason, just consistently working out to dance on that podium for that amount of time. But I'm excited. This is going to be a really fun year. And you can follow all of Bruins content over at Boston Sports Journal. You can follow mine over at CLNS. Subscribe to this Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel because we have a lot of stuff happening over there. And for CLNS Media, I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.